Welcome back, with biblical questions answered, precept upon precept, the true light, children of God, and a new birth. Today's verses are John chapter 1, verses 9 through 13. This is the true light, who enlightens every man, or all mankind, coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, and the world knew him not. He came to his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, he has given to them authority to be children of God, to those believing in his name, who not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, but of God were born of God. Okay, so I'm trying a different structure, where I will list the necessary statements and then subpoint the questions those points raise. But before we talk about that, going into the Greek, there are a few things that are important to know. The first is the word translated true, right, as in this was the true light, is one of two in the Greek. The word true has two different words in the Greek. The one used here doesn't mean true in the sense of true or false, but true in the idea of totally true or ideally true. So I'll get to that in a moment. Second, world in this passage, in the Greek, is cosmos, and it can refer to the entire universe. It can mean the world, or even just the inhabitants of the world, which can change some meaning depending on how you take it. Third, the word translated receive, which is a perfectly fine translation, but the word has a more active connotation. It's the idea of an energetic taking from, so that has a different mental image than received, which is more passive. It's fine, but it's just an important thing to keep in mind. Fourth, born of God. This one is very interesting. I'm not sure why they translate it of God. The word in the Greek is ek, for of, but which is the idea of movement from inside something to outside something. So leaving your car, you would use the word ek because you're inside your car and then you're going outside your car. So which in this context does appear to be referencing the process of being born, because you're in a womb, and then when you're born, you move from inside the womb to outside the womb. That's all of the Greek that is needed background-wise, I think. I could be missing something. Now, what can be necessarily said? So one, the light that John was testifying about was the ideal light, or the light of lights, you could say. Which, of course, the light of God would be more light than any other light. I'm pretty sure that's what John is saying here with that word, as opposed to, well, there's such a thing as a false light. Well, no, there's light or there's dark, and there's, to a degree, but this is the true light in the sense that it's the perfect light. It's the whole light. It's, it's more light than any other light. Anyway, the light was in the world, so it says that, right? He was in the world, so he being the light, so there's that. The world came into being through him, which connects the light that John is referring to soundly with the light of previous verses, and via that, the Word. So here we have the Word is the light which John is speaking of. The Word is the true light which John is referring to. So that's important. The world knew him not. So, oh, wait a minute. I missed one. No, where's it at? Oh, I missed one. Right. This light enlightens or illuminates mankind. So, it isn't clear in what manner the light illuminates mankind. Now, in a previous video, talking back about the first time the light shows up and about the light and darkness and all that stuff, I go into what John could be talking about, and I think refer back to that here instead of, I'm going to refer back to that here instead of rehashing what I've already said. Just, again, keep in mind what this could be talking about. But yes, so further on, the world knew him not. Right? So the world somehow did not know this light, which brings up the question, how does the light illuminate mankind and yet not known by the cosmos, by the world? Unknown, right? It's not clear, right? I mean, it could be that they did not know the identity of the light, right? Going back, which I think going back, we have the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness did not comprehend it. So here we have, I think, perhaps a reference to that. So again, another reason to go back and watch that video where I talk about that. So the light came, so 6, right, the next point is the light came to those who did not receive him, right? He came to his own, but his own did not receive him. Who was that? Well, since this is obviously Christ, who did he come to? Well, he came to the Jews, the Jewish people. So it is very likely, in fact, I'd say kind of the only real answer you could probably make on that would be the Jewish people as a whole. Now, the next thing you know, there were those who did receive him, right? Because to all who did receive him, so we can say there are people who didn't receive him. He came to his own, they didn't receive him, but there were those who did receive him. 8. Those who did receive him were authorized / given the power or ability to be children of God, born from God. This passage does not indicate what being born of God is. However, it does connect receiving him, being a child of God, being born of God, and believing in his name. It connects all those together, although it does not flesh out how those ideas connect together. Some people would say, oh, well, believing, and then you become a child of God. Others say, well, no, you have to be born of God first, and that's what causes you to be able to believe and receive him, because you can't really receive him if you don't believe him. And so you've got those two camps, right? You have to believe first and then child of God, and then there's like, no, you have to be born of God and then you receive him and believe in him. So this verse doesn't really doesn't really answer it one way or another. I'm sure there are probably arguments on both sides for that, but whatever side you take, you have to connect those things together. You have to say that they are connected. You have to say that, you have to affirm it. In what way you do so is up to you and, God, and reading the Bible and making sure you've got it right. Okay. Now, they were not born by blood, by the will of flesh, or the will of man. They were born from God. They were, so there's that. Now, born of blood is fairly simple. However one is born again, it is not by heritage. You're not born again because your parents are born again, or you're not born again because of who your parents were. Right? That's basically what by blood is, right? The Jewish people thought, well, we're sons of Abraham, so we're good, we're saved. No. Born of the will of flesh or man is interesting because it is not necessarily clear what it's referring to and how those two things are different. The best I can come up with is maybe it could be the will of the flesh is more emotional, guttural, instinctual type of thing. Like it's an emotional response. And so it's not an emotional response. And at the same time, the will of man, that could be a reference to the intellectual side of men. And so it's not an intellectual, oh, I see, I am now a child of God because I can tell that it's obviously the correct answer. Not the best, right? Because it's like, well, what's the difference between flesh and men, and what? It's weird. It's not sure. I'm not sure what that could be. So this is the end of the video right now. I'm going to be moving on to the next couple verses. Let me know if you liked the structure of this video a little better. I'm not sure. So that's it for now. See you next time.